So one thing that makes it a little bit complicated to study for is the fact that there are some parts of the test that are actually testing two different skills. For example, there will be one thing that I have to do during the exam that will test your listening and your writing. Another one that will test your reading and your listening. Another one that will test your listening and your speaking at the same time. Okay, so you have these things, writing and listening at the same time, okay? So it can be hard to study for this exam, mostly because if you don't do very well in one part of the test, you're not sure which activity you have to practice more, because maybe it's one that has two different types of skills. So that can be a little bit complicated, all right? Then, okay, and something that makes the PTE exam a little bit easier is the writing part. Okay, so the writing part of the PTE tends to be a bit easier compared to all the other exams. Okay, and again, guys, a computer is checking your score. Remember, it's not a person, it's a computer. Okay, so I've been helping some people with it, and it's interesting. It's an interesting test. Okay, but it makes it easy. Okay, the writing part is easy. However, I have been finding that people struggle with the speaking part of the PTE exam. Okay, so it's like, so you have this test that one part is harder, one part is a little bit difficult. Okay, so with the PTE exam, I feel that the writing part is easy, but the speaking part can be hard. Okay, and I will elaborate more on that later. Okay, and the IELTS exam. Okay, so the IELTS exam is again an exam that if you want to go to Canada, if you want to go to the UK, lots of different places, you can take this exam. And you can use the IELTS for immigration purposes, okay, and also for educational purposes. All right, and and how does it work? Nowadays, you can do the IELTS on the computer, okay, but the speaking part still with the person. Okay, the speaking part still with the person, okay? So then, and again, if you've done any English course, the IELTS is going to be simple. It's basically read a text, answer the questions, okay? So it's it's a straightforward exam, okay? You don't have to, I feel, for example, the PTE exam, you really have to understand how the test works, okay? And then you do the test, all right? Whereas the IELTS, I think it's more like if you've done an English course, you know how it works, okay? So, and what is easy about the IELTS part, those tests? I think the speaking part is quite easy, okay? And the listening part is quite simple. However, people tend to struggle with the writing part, and that's my specialty, okay? Because I felt that students really struggled with the writing part of the IELTS test. So what did I do? I got really good at it so I can teach my students and help them, okay? So that's one of the things that I do, okay? I help people with the writing part because a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people tend to struggle, okay? So now that I told you about all these exams and especially PT and IELTS, okay? Now, guys, you think about it. If you have a question, you can pop the question in there, okay? So the thing is, which one should you do, okay? So I'm going to share some of the questions I received today is which one is the easiest? Okay, guys. From my experience, there is no easy exam. No exam is easy. There are tests that are easier for you as a person. There are tests that are like more your style, all right? Because there is no easy test, okay? Let me tell you a little story. I have a student, okay? And she said, I don't know what to do, PTE, IELTS, I don't know. I said, look, my specialty is IELTS, but if you want, I can help with the PTE. But she said, no, let's do IELTS. And she got excited and said, can I study English too? I said, of course. Everyone who studies for exams with me, they also study English. I said, oh, okay, that's exciting. Let's do this, right? And then we started studying for the IELTS. She did the IELTS 3 times. She always got her overall score, but she never managed to get one of the parts above the required score. So she needed a 6.5 overall, but nothing under 6. And she never managed to get everything above 6. Once she got a 7 in speaking, but got a 5 in reading. You know what I mean? So she did the test 3 times. And then she said, look, I don't think the IELTS is for me. I'm going to try the PT. I said, are you sure? She said, yes. And I started studying for the PT. Said, no, I'm feeling it. I think I'm going to do well. And then guess what? She needed to do the PT 3 times to get her score. So again, and I asked her, which test is easier? She said, I think they are the same. Okay, guys. So it's so personal. Extremely personal. Okay. Then I had another student. Okay. He started with the IELTS test, right? And then he did the IELTS test once, got a horrible score, got really, really angry and told me, I'm going to do the PT exam. I said, okay, no problem. I can support you. Okay, let's do this. And did the PT exam. And guess what? He had to do it 3 times to get his score. So again, but for him, it was better. But he still had to do it many times. You know, guys. And then I have a student. She actually did the PTE a few times. And she said, I can't do it anymore. One thing that a lot of people complain about the PTE exam is the fact that you're in a room and there are lots of people speaking at the same time because you're talking to the computer, and people tend to speak loud, and that might disturb your listening, or even when you're speaking, you're a little bit uncomfortable. And that was a problem for her. And she did it 3 times. Like, you know what? I'm just going to try this IELTS. And she tried and she got it, the score she needed.